Hi, I am Sophia. Welcome to True Payback, where story hits different. Hit subscribe, let's dive in.
The champagne glass in my hand was worth more than my sister thought I made in a month. But that was the point, wasn't it? Madison had always been exceptional at making assumptions. The party was everything Madison excelled at, calculated perfection designed to impress. Her new lakefront property overlooked Crystal Lake, the kind of address that made people pause when you said it out loud. 200 guests mingled on the expansive deck, all carefully curated to represent success, wealth, and the kind of connections that mattered in her world. I'd arrived quietly, wearing a simple black dress that cost $200. Madison had texted me 3 times beforehand, "Please dress appropriately, this is a professional event," and finally, "Try not to embarrass me." I'd replied each time with a simple thumbs-up emoji. Our parents had arrived an hour before me, immediately gravitating toward Madison's business partner, Craig Hoffman, and his wife. Dad wore his country club blazer. Mom had her important occasion pearls. They looked like they belonged, which was the entire point of their existence. I'd grown up watching this performance. Madison was 5 years older, and from the moment she could walk, she'd been groomed for this life. Business school at Northwestern. MBA at 24. Junior partner at Lakeside Developments by 28. Now, at 33, she was on track to make senior partner, managing a portfolio that included some of the most prestigious waterfront properties in the state. And then there was me. 28, quiet, forgettable Maya. The daughter who never quite found her direction. The one who rented a modest apartment downtown, drove a 7-year-old Honda, and worked in what my family vaguely understood as some kind of consulting. They'd stopped asking questions about my career around year 3. The answers were too boring, too technical, too unlike the stories Madison brought to family dinners about closing deals and impressing clients. I'd let them stop asking. The first hour of the party passed predictably. I stayed near the edges, observing. Madison worked the crowd like a politician, moving from group to group with practiced ease. Craig Hoffman stayed close, his hand occasionally touching her elbow in that proprietary way business partners do when they're signaling partnership to observers. Lakeside Developments had been their joint venture for 4 years. Craig brought the construction expertise and local connections. Madison brought the sales brilliance and the kind of polished presence that made wealthy clients trust her with their 7-figure property purchases. What neither of them knew was that I'd brought the money. $5.1 million to be precise. Invested through a private equity firm I'd established 6 years ago, structured through enough legal entities that my name appeared nowhere on any paperwork they'd ever see. The investment had been listed as coming from Cascade Capital Partners, one of 17 investment vehicles I used for various projects. I'd funded 40% of their expansion into the Crystal Lake development. The luxury condos, the marina renovations, the high-end retail spaces, all built partly with my capital. I'd watched the quarterly reports, attended board meetings via video conference under my corporate identity, and voted on major decisions. Madison had no idea she'd been pitching her own sister for funding 4 years ago. I'd sent my CFO to the initial meetings. By the time I'd appeared in the boardroom, I was just another face from Cascade Capital, asking technical questions about ROI and market projections. She'd been brilliant in that presentation. I'd been genuinely impressed. That's why I'd invested. But I'd also been clear about one thing in my investor agreement. The partnership could be dissolved with 90 days' notice if the working relationship became untenable. It was standard language. Craig's attorney had barely glanced at it. I'd never intended to use it. Until tonight. Paya. Mom's voice cut through my thoughts. She approached with her professional smile, the one that meant she was about to say something critical while sounding supportive. "You made it. We weren't sure you'd come. Madison invited me." "Yes, well." Mom glanced at my dress with the kind of assessment that made you feel immediately inadequate. "It's nice you made an effort." Dad appeared beside her holding a scotch. "Hell of a property Madison's got here. The girl knows how to invest." "She does," I agreed. "You should take notes," he continued. "This is what building wealth looks like. Real estate. Tangible assets. Not whatever it is you do with computers." I didn't bother correcting him that I'd never said I worked with computers. He'd filled in that blank himself years ago and never bothered to update his assumptions. "I'll keep that in mind," I said. Mom touched my arm, her voice dropping to a whisper. Please don't monopolize Madison tonight. She has important people here. Potential clients. I'm just here to support her. Good. That's good. But she didn't look convinced. They drifted away back toward the cluster of people who mattered. I found a quiet corner of the deck and checked my phone. 3 emails from my actual office. I was interim CEO of a mid-sized investment firm that managed $847 million in assets. 2 messages from my attorney about a commercial real estate acquisition in Portland. 1 text from my girlfriend, Zoe, asking how the family torture session was going. I replied, about as expected. Home by 10. The sun was setting over Crystal Lake, painting everything in gold and amber. It really was beautiful. Madison had good taste. He always had. That's when I heard it. Is your sister actually here? The voice belonged to Vanessa Chin, one of Madison's colleagues from the development firm. Unfortunately, Madison's laugh was light but edged. I told her she didn't have to come, but you know how family is. What does she even do? Some kind of data entry work? I honestly don't know. She's very private about it. Probably embarrassed. They were standing near the bar 20 feet from where I'd positioned myself. They hadn't seen me. Vanessa lowered her voice, but not enough. And she's here at your lakefront party? I had to invite her. Mom would have killed me otherwise. But I made sure she understood this was a professional event. Madison paused. The girl's 28 and still renting a studio apartment. Can you imagine? Some people just never figure it out. Exactly. Madison accepted a champagne flute from a passing server. I try not to compare, but it's difficult. We had the same opportunities, the same upbringing. I just chose to build something. She chose mediocrity. I took a slow breath. This wasn't new. I'd heard variations of this my entire adult life. It shouldn't have surprised me. But the next part did. The worst part is she probably thinks this is attainable for her someday. Like if she just works hard enough at her little job, she'll magically afford waterfront property. Madison gestured toward the lake. She doesn't understand that success at this level requires risk, vision, capital. Things she's never had. Vanessa nodded sympathetically. It must be hard having family who don't understand your world. It is. And I can't even talk to her about the business anymore because she just doesn't get it. Last Christmas I tried explaining our Crystal Lake expansion and she asked the most basic questions. Like questions you'd expect from someone who'd never taken a business class. The irony was breathtaking. I'd reviewed every aspect of that Crystal Lake expansion. I'd been the one who'd pushed back on the timeline, who'd insisted on additional market analysis, who'd ultimately approved the final budget that made the entire project possible. Well, Vanessa said brightly, at least you turned out successful. 1 out of 2 isn't bad. They laughed and moved away, joining another group near the fire pit. I stood there for a moment watching the lake. The water was still, reflecting the darkening sky like glass. Peaceful. Deceptive. I pulled out my phone. The text to my investment firm was brief. Initiate withdrawal protocols for Cascade Capital Investment in Lakeside Developments. 90-day notice as per partnership agreement. Confirm receipt. The response came in 40 seconds. Confirmed. Paperwork will be filed Monday morning. Board notification will follow standard procedures. I slipped my phone back into my purse. The party continued around me. Madison worked her magic, charming potential clients, laughing at the right moments, touching arms with practiced familiarity. Craig Hoffman gave a short speech about the future of lakefront development, about vision and partnership and the American dream of waterfront living. I stayed for another hour. I congratulated Madison on the beautiful property. I smiled at my parents' friends. I let them all assume I was exactly who they thought I was. Because that was the strategy I'd chosen 6 years ago when I'd started building my wealth. I'd watched Madison navigate the world with flash and presentation, turning everything into a performance. I'd seen how our parents responded to that, how they celebrated the visible markers of success while dismissing anything they couldn't immediately understand or brag about. So I'd gone the other direction. I'd built quietly. I'd invested carefully. I'd created structures and entities that kept my name out of public records. I'd worked with attorneys who understood discretion, with financial advisors who specialized in privacy, with CPAs who knew how to make wealth invisible. Not because I was ashamed. Because I was strategic. I'd learned from Madison's mistakes. The overextension, the risky leverage, the need for constant validation that led to vulnerable decisions. I'd watched our parents' generation build wealth through showing off, then watched that same showing off make them targets for litigation, for family drama, for people who wanted a piece of what they'd built. I'd chosen a different path. And it had worked. By 25, I'd turned my first real profit, $400,000 from a tech startup investment. By 26, I was managing other people's money. By 27, I'd founded my own firm. Now, at 28, I had enough liquid assets to buy Madison's property outright and still have enough left over to fund 3 more developments just like it. But nobody knew that. And until tonight, I'd been content to keep it that way. At 9:30, I found Madison near the kitchen taking a break between hosting duties. "Beautiful party," I told her. She looked surprised I'd approached. "Thanks. I'm glad you could make it. The property is stunning." "Thank you." She softened slightly, perhaps feeling guilty about what she'd said earlier. "You know, Maya, if you ever want to talk about career development or financial planning, I'd be happy to." "I appreciate that," I interrupted gently. "But I'm doing fine." "Oh, I know you're doing fine. I just mean if you ever want to do more than fine." Madison kept my voice even. "I'm genuinely happy for your success. This is an incredible achievement. You should be proud." She studied me for a moment, perhaps trying to detect sarcasm. Finding none, she nodded. "Thanks. That means a lot." I hugged her goodbye. She felt stiff in my arms, probably uncomfortable with sincerity from someone she'd spent years dismissing. I said goodbye to my parents, endured Mom's commentary about leaving early, and walked to my car. The Honda started on the first try, as it always did. I kept it because it was reliable and because nobody looked twice at it. It had been paid off for 3 years. The registration was in my personal name, not my corporate one. Driving home, I thought about what would happen Monday morning. The notification would go to Craig first. He was the managing partner. He'd call an emergency board meeting. They'd review the partnership agreement, realize it was ironclad, and understand they had 90 days to replace $5.1 million in capital or scale back their expansion plans significantly. They'd scramble. They'd call other investors. They'd probably find replacement funding eventually. Lakeside Developments was a solid company with good fundamentals. But it would be expensive, the new terms wouldn't be as favorable, and the timeline would be thrown into chaos. Projects would be delayed. Some might be cancelled. Madison's path to senior partner would hit a significant obstacle. And she'd never know why. The investor withdrawing would be listed as Cascade Capital Partners. Just another private equity firm making a strategic reallocation. These things happened in business. No explanation required. I got home at 10:15. My apartment was small, 900 square feet, 1 bedroom, minimal furnishing. I'd signed a 2-year lease because it was convenient to my office and because the building had excellent security and privacy. The rent was $1,800 a month, which my family considered evidence of financial struggle. The apartment was also in a building I owned. I'd bought the entire complex 3 years ago as part of a mixed-use real estate investment. I paid rent to my own property management company, which paid me back as the owner. The arrangement kept my living situation private while providing legitimate tax documentation. Zoe was waiting on the couch, working on her laptop. She was an architect, genuinely successful in her own right, and one of the few people who knew the truth about my financial situation. "How bad?" she asked. She called me a lifelong renter who chose mediocrity. Zoe winced. Ouch. In front of her colleagues. At a party celebrating property she bought partly with my money. "What did you do?" I showed her the text exchange with my investment firm. Zoe read it twice. "You're pulling $5 million from her company." "Yep. That's going to cause significant problems for them." "Yep." She looked at me carefully. "Are you sure?" I sat down beside her. "I spent 6 years building something real. I did it quietly because I wanted to avoid exactly the kind of drama my family specializes in. I funded Madison's success because she's brilliant and I believed in her vision. And tonight she told a room full of people that I'm a failure who doesn't understand what success looks like. She doesn't know who she was talking about. That's the problem. She should have known. Not because I'm secretly rich, because I'm her sister. She should have known me well enough to not make assumptions. She should have cared enough to ask real questions instead of filling in blanks with convenient narratives. Zoe nodded slowly. So this is about more than the money. This is about respect. About being seen. About the fact that she spent a decade dismissing me because I didn't perform success the way she expected. And now she'll lose a major investor and never know why. Now she'll understand that assumptions have consequences. We sat in silence for a moment. For what it's worth, Zoe said quietly, I'm proud of what you've built. The real version, not the performance. I know. And I'm sorry your family can't see it. Me too. Monday morning arrived with rain. I was in my office by 7, reviewing quarterly reports from my portfolio companies. My assistant James brought coffee and the morning briefing. The Lakeside Developments withdrawal is filed, he confirmed. Legal sent the notification at 9 a.m. We should expect a call from their management by noon. Routed to legal. Standard investor relations response. Understood. He paused. This is a family connection, correct? It was. He didn't ask for clarification. The call came at 11:47 a.m. Craig Hoffman speaking directly with my head of legal operations. I listened to the conference line from my office, my identity protected by corporate structure and attorney-client privilege. Craig was professional but clearly stressed. We weren't anticipating this withdrawal. Can I ask what prompted the decision? My attorney Rebecca Chin kept her tone neutral. Cascade Capital is reallocating resources toward other investment priorities. This is a standard portfolio adjustment. We've had an excellent working relationship for 4 years. Strong returns, clear communication. The numbers are solid, Rebecca agreed. This isn't a performance issue. Then what is it? We're in the middle of a major expansion. The timing is. The partnership agreement allows for withdrawal with 90-day notice. We're exercising that right. Silence on Craig's end. Then, is there anything we can do to reconsider this decision? Better terms? Adjusted timeline. The decision is final. More silence. I could imagine Craig's face, running calculations, thinking about cash flow and construction schedules and the investors he'd need to approach. Can I at least speak directly with the decision-maker at Cascade? The principal maintains strict privacy protocols. I'm authorized to handle all communications. This is going to significantly impact our operations. We understand. The 90-day notice period is designed to allow for transition planning. The call ended shortly after. Professional. Clean. Devastating. I went back to work. Over the next week I heard nothing from my family. Madison was presumably too busy dealing with the investor crisis to think about calling her mediocre little sister. Mom and Dad were likely wrapped up in their own concerns, if they'd heard about the situation at all. I attended to my actual responsibilities, approving a $3.2 million investment in a renewable energy startup, reviewing proposals for a commercial property acquisition in Seattle, conducting interviews for a new portfolio manager position. The second call came on day 9. This time it was Madison. My personal cell phone rang at 8:30 p.m. I was home working on my laptop while Zoe cooked dinner. Hey, Madison's voice sounded tired. Do you have a minute? Sure. I needed to talk to someone outside the business world. Someone who wouldn't judge. The irony was exquisite. What's going on? I asked. One of our major investors is pulling out. It's this whole nightmare situation and Craig and I have been scrambling to find replacement funding, and it's a lot. I'm sorry. That sounds stressful. It is. And the worst part is we don't even know why they're leaving. They won't tell us. Just some corporate bullshit about reallocating resources. Like we didn't deliver everything we promised. Maybe it really is just business. Maybe. She sighed. I don't know. I guess I'm calling because I wanted to talk to someone who isn't constantly asking me about investor relations and backup plans and, God, I sound like an asshole, don't I? Complaining about business problems to you. It's fine. No, it's not. You've probably got your own stuff going on. I haven't even asked how you're doing. I'm doing well. Good. That's good. Another pause. Listen, about the party last week. I hope I didn't seem too wrapped up in the hosting thing. I barely got to talk to you. You were busy. I understood. Still, You're my sister. I should make more time. I closed my laptop. Madison, can I ask you something? Of course. What do you think I do for work? The question clearly caught her off guard. What? I mean, you said something about consulting, right? When was the last time you asked me about it? Silence. I'm not trying to make you feel bad, I continued. I'm genuinely asking. When was the last time you asked me a real question about my career? I don't know. College maybe? You always seemed private about it. I was private because nobody seemed interested. You all filled in your own narratives about my life, and after a while, it was easier to just let you believe what you wanted to believe. Maya, what are you talking about? You called me a mediocre lifelong renter at your party. In front of your colleagues. Her sharp intake of breath told me she hadn't realized I'd overheard. You said I chose mediocrity. That I don't understand success at your level. That I ask basic questions because I've never taken a business class. Maya, I didn't mean. You did mean it. That's what you believe about me. It's what you've all believed for years. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have said those things. You're apologizing because I heard you, not because you said them. That's not fair. Isn't it? Kept my voice even. Madison, you've spent a decade assuming I'm a failure because I don't perform success the way you do. You've never asked real questions. You've never bothered to look deeper. You just decided I was the disappointing sister and moved on. I don't think you're disappointing. Yes, you do. And so do Mom and Dad. I'm the cautionary tale you all reference when you want to feel better about your own choices. That's not true. Then tell me 3 things about my actual career. Not what you assume, what you actually know. Silence. You can't, I said quietly. Because you've never cared enough to ask. Maya, please. I'm sorry. I really am. Let me make it up to you. We could have lunch and you could tell me about. I don't need you to make it up to me. I need you to understand that your assumptions have consequences. What does that mean? It means some people choose to build their success privately. Some people don't need recognition or performance or constant validation. Some people are perfectly happy being underestimated. I don't understand. I know. That's the problem. I ended the call. Zoe appeared in the doorway. That sounded intense. She apologized. How did it feel? Empty. She's sorry I heard her, not sorry she said it. And she still has no idea who she's actually talking to. Are you going to tell her? I thought about it. No. Why not? Because the lesson isn't your sister is actually rich. The lesson is, you made assumptions about someone you claimed to love and those assumptions were wrong. If I tell her the truth now, she'll just feel embarrassed. She won't actually learn anything. So she just thinks Cascade Capital randomly pulled funding at the worst possible time? Business happens. Investors withdraw. She'll deal with it, find new funding and move forward. But maybe, she'll remember this feeling the next time she's tempted to make assumptions about someone's worth based on appearances. Zoe sat beside me. You're more forgiving than I would be. I'm not forgiving her. I'm letting her experience consequences. There's a difference. The 90 days passed quietly. Lakeside Developments found replacement funding, though the terms were less favorable and 2 projects had to be delayed. Madison made junior-senior partner but was passed over for the full promotion she'd been expecting. My parents called once during that period inviting me to Sunday brunch. I declined. Mom asked if everything was okay. I said I was busy with work. What work? Dad asked in the background. I smiled. Just work. They didn't push. On day 91, the capital withdrawal was complete. Cascade Capital's investment in Lakeside Developments was officially dissolved. I reallocated the $5.1 million toward a new project. A sustainable housing development in Portland that aligned better with my values anyway. Madison called again that night. The investor thing is finally resolved, she said. We found new funding. It was rough, but we made it work. That's great. I'm glad it worked out. Yeah. It made me think about a lot of things. About priorities and what actually matters. Oh. I've been so focused on building the business, on making senior partner, on proving something to everyone. And I realized I don't even know what I'm proving anymore. That sounds like good introspection. I guess what I'm saying is I want to do better. With you. With actually knowing who you are instead of assuming. I appreciate that. So maybe we could have that lunch? And you could tell me about your actual life, not the version I made up in my head. I considered it. Okay. Really? Really? But Madison. Yeah. I'm not looking for you to be impressed. I'm looking for you to be interested. There's a difference. I understand. And Maya? Yeah. For what it's worth, I do love you. Even when I'm being a terrible sister. I know. We set a date for lunch the following Tuesday. I didn't know if she'd actually show up with genuine curiosity or if this was just another performance. But I'd given her a chance to do better. What she did with that chance was up to her. As for me, I went back to building. Quietly. Strategically. On my own terms. Because the best revenge isn't making someone acknowledge your success. It's succeeding so thoroughly that their acknowledgement becomes irrelevant. And that's exactly what I'd done.